What's going on, everybody? My name is Eason, and welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to get into topic 4.7 for AP Geography. We're going to get into forms of governance, and we're going to learn about the different type of government that a state could have. And there's actually two compositions that a state could have. And the first one starts with a U, and it is a unitary state. So, yeah, I'm going to write this really badly because I can. And the next one, if you live in the United States, you're probably a little more familiar with it because you've probably heard the word federalism before. Yeah, you're right. This is a federal state. So we're going to learn about these two states, what they look like. We're going to look at some positive and negative effects of being these type of states. And we're going to get into some examples of countries that are them. So let's get started with the unitary state. So unitary state is where power is more top-down and found in the central government more. So if I actually could draw this, we have our central governments, and then we have our local governments right here. So there's not much power given to these local governments. Power is focused in the central government. Very, very cool. Then we have our federal states, which is kind of the opposite. Power is shared and dispersed between federal and local governments. So we can draw our federal governments here. We can also draw our local governments and see that they have a lot more power than in a unitary state. Now, in a unitary state, there's a lower chance of devolution, because there's less power given to local areas, less autonomy is given. And there's also lower level of local corruption because, well, there's less power given. So the corruption at a local scale is going to be lower because there's less for them to screw up. Then for a federal state, this is actually going to be the opposite. There's a higher chance of devolution and local corruption. And we see a lot of devolution given in a federal state, for maybe the federal government allowing the local governments to create their own laws and education system. In the United States, each state has their own education system. Some laws vary from state to state. That's because of devolution. And we can see higher rates of local corruption because there's more for them to screw up. They can screw up more because they have the ability to. In unitary states, minority groups in local areas are going to be less addressed because the central government is going to focus more on majority of the country. So if ethnicity A makes up 90% of the country and has no problems, and ethnicity B is having issues with land destruction, ethnicity A is going to be favored and heard more and addressed, most likely, in a unitary government because they make up more of the population. In local areas, maybe public service is lacking in a certain area. Maybe a city is having high crime rates. The unitary state may not focus on that because it's not what's happening in the rest of the country. In a federal state, though, minority groups and local areas are going to be more addressed in government and, of course, stuff like that. And this is going to lead to better perseverance of cultural identity. So in the United States, which is a pretty big state, federal states are going to tend to be bigger, and unitary states are going to probably be more smaller, maybe more isolated, possibly nation states. Of course, the United Kingdom is an exception. The United Kingdom is unitary and a multinational state. We can see that very clearly. But we're going to see more address more for the minority groups. So ethnicity B could have their land destruction issue challenged with the local government. And then in a unitary state, there's going to be more efficient laws being passed because there's just less for them to go to. So the central government will be like, all right, guys, this law is passed, and the local areas just have to deal with it. But in the federal state, a law could be passed, and then the local governments may say, no, we're not going to do this, or they're going to change it a little bit for their own state or region. And then in a federal state, we're going to see local level public services being offered more. So in a unitary state, maybe the government's going to control the education for the whole country. But in a federal state, each local government is going to control the education and stuff like that. All right, so we just looked at some characteristics of these two states. Let's just look at some examples. You don't really need to know any of these by heart. It's just kind of good to know. You may see a state and recognize it as a unitary or a federal state, which is pretty cool to do. You can brag to your friends about it. You could be like, hey, France is a unitary state. I know that. Hey, you can check out this video because you can learn where 18 states are. So a unitary state, so United Kingdom, France, Bangladesh, Italy, Japan, Morocco, Guatemala, Iceland, and Kenya. These are all examples of unitary state. They're going to have that top-down sort of power in that state. Very, very cool. And then our federal states, of course, the United States is one of them, but also Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Malaysia, India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Nepal, and Germany are also federal states. The composition of a unitary and federal state here can vary around the world. We see some Asia states that are unitary or federal, some Africa that are unitary and federal, Europe that's unitary and federal. It just really depends on the state. I talked about the size of that earlier, so go rewind if you can't remember that. And that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. It is our favorite time of the video, the FRQ and the video suggestions. Go check out both of them. They're very, very cool. Please like and subscribe. It's free. It really does help me out. You can change your mind later on if you don't like so. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.